to you about how you might want to handle
Absolutely.
yeah. Her and you, and then just let it.
No, of course not.
She wants the downstairs area here. But we've just organised an arrangement with sustain the food people like, and she doesn't know what it's.
Councillors, can I have your attention, please? I welcome you all to this meeting of the Cardinia Shire Council and declare the meeting open. Please note that this meeting is being webcast live over the internet on Council's website. We commence the meeting with the following prayer. Almighty God, we humbly request that you bestow your blessings upon this council, direct and prosper our deliberations to the advancement of your glory and to the betterment of the peoples of Cardinia Shire. Amen. Also, too, we have our traditional landowners' acknowledgement. The Cardinia Shire Council respectfully acknowledges that we're on the traditional land of the Bunurong and Wurundjeri people and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Mr Evans, I believe we have some apologies. Thank you.
Yes, Mr Mayor, we've got apologies this evening from Councillor Letitia Wilmot, and unfortunately Councillor Ryan has had to leave urgently due to a family matter.
Thank you, Mr Evans. Going on to the minutes of the previous meetings, can I have a motion, please, to adopt the minutes as listed? Councillor Jodie Owen, seconded. Councillor Graham Moore. All those in favour? Declared carried. Councillors, do we have any declarations of interest? If not, we will move on. The Council conducts its meetings according to a consent agenda. Councillors have advised of the matters for consideration for this evening that they wish to discuss or debate. The remaining items will be adopted without discussion. The items withdrawn for discussion this evening are item number 1, Amendment C232 Glisman Road Planning Scheme Amendment, and it's been withdrawn by Councillor Brett Owen. Thank you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the following. That authorisation be sought from the Minister of Planning under Section 9, Subsection 2 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 to prepare Amendment C238 to the Cardinia Planning Scheme to facilitate the following in the Glisman Road Development Plan area. Rezone land from the Rural Living Zone, RLZ2, to the General Residential Zone, GRZ2. Rezone Levenmarn Avenue from General Residential Zone to General Residential Zone. Remove the amendment area from the Environment Significance Landscape Overlay. Amend the schedule to Clause 43.04, Development Plan Overlay, to include Schedule 19, Glisman Road Development Plan, and amend the planning scheme maps 12 ESO and 12 DPO. Also, that the Minister be advised that Council request for authorisation is subject to the Minister's approval that Council request to seek authorisation from the Minister for Planning under Section 9, Subsection 2 of the Planning Environment Act 1987 to prepare Amendment C238 to the Cardinia Planning Scheme as resolved by Council on the 19th of February 2018 has now been superseded by Council's resolution of the 15th of October 2018. An infrastructure contributions plan or a development contributions plan is not proposed for the Glisman Road Development Plan area. The proposed development plan overlay DPO will ensure that any development must demonstrate how services and infrastructure will be delivered as part of the site development, and officers may make changes to the Glisman Road Development Plan, revised M date 29 January 2018, Attachment 1, that do not change the intent or direction of the plan. So, Mayor, I move that.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Do I have a second to the motion, please? Seconded. Councillor Jeff Springfield. Seconded. Back to the mover to speak. Thank you, Councillor Brett Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Jeff Springfield. Councillors, this has been a matter that's been going for well over 10 years, and it's very complex. And I just want to seek the author of the report, Lorna Lablache, to just summarise the report and the recommendations, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I'll just run through what has changed since the last resolution of February 2018. So when we went to Council back in February, we saw... Is that better? Can you hear me now? Okay. When we presented the report to Council back in February 2018, the report addressed the planning mechanism that was to be used to allow the Glisman Road area to be rezoned and be developed. As a result of that council resolution, we sent correspondence off to the Minister for Planning to seek authorisation to prepare the amendment. That letter went out in March. In April of this year, we got correspondence from the Minister that they would like further time to review the amendment request. So we were unclear as to what direction they were looking, or the Minister was looking to make changes to the recommendation that was made by Council. We received further correspondence in April of this year, and the correspondence detailed the components of the amendment that the Minister required us to alter. The main component was with regards to the mechanism used to deliver infrastructure for the area. So with any area that's developed or rezoned, there's a requirement that developers provide certain infrastructure. In the case of Glisman Road, the development infrastructure is quite expensive. So before any development can happen in Glisman Road, there is a requirement to put signals at the intersection of O'Neill Road and Old Princess Highway and Beaconsfield Avenue. There's also the requirement to seal the road. So as a result of that, the infrastructure that's required to allow the development of Glisman Road to take place, we had originally looked at doing the infrastructure delivery through the infrastructure contributions plan. The Minister advised that the department did not support the use of the infrastructure contributions plan. So we went back and had a look at what was the mechanism that we could use to deliver the infrastructure. On our assessment, we looked at the provisions of the development contributions requirements, and there are several constraints with Glisman Road which make it very difficult to deliver in infrastructure contribution plan. There's fragmented ownership, which makes it very difficult for one developer to actually provide enough lots to be able to fund that infrastructure. And there's also the problem with that infrastructure. It's non-negotiable. It's not like development can occur and the major infrastructure can wait. It all has to be done from the very beginning. So this report actually provides an assessment of the cost for that infrastructure and how it would be delivered and the difficulties with that. So as a result, this report recommends that we still proceed with the Glisman Road development plan. So the recommendation to rezone the land is still the same. The recommendation to prepare a development plan is still the same. The only difference is that in February we were actually planning to have a development plan run alongside the amendment, and that development plan was going to provide all of the detail about how the area was going to be developed. But now that the funding mechanism has changed, it's unlikely that development will occur in the Glisman Road area in the short term. It's more likely to be like a medium or long-term development proposal. So it's been decided that that work will be a requirement by a developer when they go to actually subdivide the land. The amendment is very detailed in terms of what the requirements of the developer will be. And so this recommendation is that all of that information form part of the amendment. So we'll still be in a situation where we'll be requesting that the Minister allow us to do an 8-week consultation period for the amendment, so there's no change to that. We'll also be, so with this 8-week exhibition period, it will most likely take us to after Christmas. So early next year, we'd be looking at coming back to Council with all the submissions that we've received from the residents. And if we're unable to resolve the submissions, we'll still be at that point where we can refer any submissions to an independent panel. So that process hasn't changed, that's still the same. It's just the mechanism of how we can actually word the planning scheme amendment that has changed. And that's purely as a result of changes that have occurred with legislation in terms of how we can actually do any changes. So even though we are Cardinia Council, we are required to follow state provisions in terms of how we write the planning scheme. So unfortunately for this particular project, we were sort of caught in the middle of a change in legislation, so that's another reason why there's been the delay. So, And what we would like to see in this 8-week consultation process is that we'll be available to sit down with you and have a chat about all of the detail that's in the schedule. And again, as I said, you can have that opportunity then to put that detail in your submission, and we can address any of your questions then.
Thank you, Lorna. Brett, did you have any more questions of Lorna to explain? No? Back to the mover to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Lorna. And I just want to acknowledge your great work in this space. Thank you for providing a summary. It is a very complex matter, and I just thought it'd be advantageous to ask you to summarise. No doubt it's a complex one. I do not acknowledge there are a number of landowners here. It has been an emotional over 10 years for all residents. In recent times, with the latest rate notices, residents were hit by massive rate increases because of some speculative purchases in that area, and that has a roll-on effect on remaining landholders. So I know it has been very difficult for you all. I think by us exhibiting this, it will give you, the landowners, an opportunity to put their submissions in writing. We haven't got to that stage yet, and I think a number of residents have been really wanting to be able to do that. For council to receive submissions, for residents to write submissions is a good thing. To go to a panel is a good thing. On page 9, it details the sort of infrastructure required to get this going, and it is quite extensive. And because of the 21 individual lots, and they are ranges from 0.4 of a hectare to 1.47 of a hectare, unless you have a developer that goes in buying several lots, you aren't going to see a developer do that because of the infrastructure required. So we have to go down this path to move on with this. Council is advocating to bring forward this intersection through other mechanisms, whether it's other development in the area of Beaconsfield that would benefit for such a upgrade to Glisman Road and the highway. And we're also advocating to other governments to try and bring forward this intersection and other intersections as well that are under extreme pressure. So if that was to come to bear, and that may free up this and allow development to occur if that intersection is done earlier. So that's something that council will continue to do, because we know this intersection at Glisman Road and the Old Princess Highway is already at capacity and something needs to be done. So I look forward to getting the submissions going to panel and hopefully getting some certainty for residents that are yearning for this to occur. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Seconder to speak, Councillor Jeff Springfield. Thank you, Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Owen, for moving this motion. Look, I too would like to thank Lorna for all the hard work she's put into this thing. As many of these residents sorry, I'm just losing my words here. They know it's been going on a long time. This has been well over, long time before I even came along here, and I've heard many in-depth descriptions of the frustrations that is felt on both fronts, because it's also from council's side. Council is here trying to do the best they can for the community to detail a plan for the future development of this area when it does in the future sometime become more developed, which is an inevitable step that will come about. I think so far this plan that we have in front of us is the logical next step. It's not forcing anyone into doing anything. It's not. All it's doing is binding the development when it does occur to be within a set framework, and gives you the outline of the infrastructure that's needed, which is needed to develop this site. I agree with Councillor Owen. It would be great to see these traffic signals done in the really short-term future. We are advocating for that on a council level. We recognise it's a problem for many residents that live in not just Glisman Road, but within Beaconsfield or travel through there. It's recognised, but it's something that's beyond our capabilities. as it falls into the state government department. But we are knocking on that door as best we can. So again, hats off to all the council officers involved in the evolution of this plan so far, and hopefully this will put some minds at ease once we get to fruition of this in a few months' time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jeff Springfield. Do we have any other speakers either for or against the motion? No. Before I go back to the mover to sum up, I would just like to echo Councillor Owen's views that over a 10-year period that I've been here, this issue has gone back and forward between council and residents on a regular basis. I think it is really good that residents will get the opportunity before an independent panel to give their views and their insights on how it might affect them and what their views are on what gets put forward finally. And then an independent panel only gives a recommendation, so they can listen to everybody concerned about what their view might be, and they'll put something back to say what their thoughts are on the matter. So anyway, I think that has to be a good thing, because it's gone on for so long and people are living with so much uncertainty around this space. People don't know what to think. Is it going to go this way or this way or this way? At least this way, we'll have some certainty around where it's at the end of the process. So anyway, I do thank, like Councillor Owen, Lorna for her hard work. Fortunately, she hasn't lost all her hair like Tim in the hills over some different issues he's been battling away with. She's done a really good job. So I must say it is commended, and it's noted by council, all the hard work that has been done. And I must say that, and the patience from the residents too on this issue, that they've really hung in there. And it's been really respectful, which needs to be noted as well, because these things people can get really passionate about things, and it can go pear-shaped. And then once the conversation gets lost, then no good's going to come out of it anyway. So congratulations to everyone concerned, and hopefully we're going to get some certainty around this space. So I'll go back to the mover to sum up, unless was there any other speakers? If not, I'll go back to the mover. Thank you, Councillor Rowan.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to quickly summarise. It is imperative that this project moves forward in a timely manner, and this is the recommendation tonight. This report identifies that it is possible to proceed with the Glisman Road DP amendment without a DCP or an ICP. The revised elements of the amendment still seeks to rezone land to all residential development. Through the provisions of a detailed development plan overlay, a DPO, development within the Glisman Road development plan area will develop through the guidance of a future development plan that will be generally in accordance with the council adopted Glisman Road development plan, dated 29th of January 2018, consist of written text, plans and drawings, provide clear direction and certainty for the fair and orderly provision of the road network, public open space and traffic management, ensure that all major planning issues are resolved prior to the commencement of subdivision development, safeguard natural features by carefully integrating them into the development of the land to minimise adverse impact on the amenity of the area, balance the need for new housing against the environmental constraints and opportunities of the area, and ensure that the proposed use, development and or subdivision is viewed in a holistic manner rather than a series of smaller planning approvals. Once the land has been rezoned and development plan overlay is in place, with guidelines that specify the type of development that is expected for the area and places a requirement with regard to the delivery of key infrastructure, the market will guide when the area will be viable for development and how the provision of infrastructure will be funded. So it is recommended, councillors, to seek authorisation from the Minister for Planning to prepare and exhibit Amendment C238 to the Cardinia planning scheme. So I move so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. We'll go to a vote. All those in favour? Declared unanimously. Moving on to item number 2, subdivision of the land and the removal of vegetation at 82 to 88 Ahern Road, Pakenham. It was going to be withdrawn by Councillor Carol Ryan, but unfortunately Carol has had to leave, as said by Mr Evans, in relation to a family issue. So it's going to be moved by Councillor Michael Schilling, I understand. Going to the mover. Thank you, Councillor Schilling.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight I'd like to move the officer's recommendation that a notice of decision to grant planning permit T170831 be issued for the subdivision of the land and removal of native vegetation at 82 to 88 Ahern Road, Pakenham, Victoria 3810, subject to the conditions attached to this report.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. Do I have a seconder to the motion, please? Councillor Jodie Owen. Back to the mover to speak. Thank you, Councillor Schilling.
Thank you, Mayor. As mentioned by yourself, Mayor, this was originally withdrawn by Councillor Ryan, but I'm more than happy to withdraw this item in her absence tonight. And I would like to acknowledge, I do know that we have some of the objectors to this application in the gallery. And I think it's when you have objectors to any application that comes to the council, I think that it's fair that the issues get debated in the chamber. I'll get going. This proposed development is for a 28-lot subdivision with the removal of native vegetation, 8 trees with the proposed development amended to retain vegetation along the north boundary. Each lot in this development has varied width. However, most of the lots contained within this development have a width of 14 to 15 metres with lengths between 32 and 34 metres. Just for people that are not familiar with this site, it is down Ahern Road opposite Don Jackson Reserve. The site currently has a single brick property contained, and it's about 80 metres north of Allen Close, which is the nearest street to this development. Within this report, there are 50 conditions which are attached to the permit, which, if adopted tonight, the developer will have to go along with these 50 conditions. And the purpose of these conditions are to ensure that development is of a high quality and that developers aren't able to get away with substandard developments which could negatively impact on the surrounding residents. I won't go through all 50 objections because it is quite a comprehensive, conditions on the report. They are quite comprehensive, but I would encourage residents to go through and have a look at the 50 conditions. Some of them do, I believe, alleviate some of the objectors' concerns within the development. But some of them, I'll just point out 3 that I have picked out. One of them is around the submission of the landscape plan. That was a little bit vague within the first application, which was presented to council. So before works can commence, this landscape plan has to be submitted and has to be up to the standard of council before it can proceed. There's also an agreement with telecommunications providers for the provision of services. In the world of the digital economy, this is a very important condition to have on the report. We don't want to be supporting any developments in the Shire which are immediate black spots for technology, and particularly fast internet services this day and age. And also ensuring that the construction of the roads are to a standard that are acceptable in all weather conditions. Whenever we have a development, and I think that is where we've come unstuck in the past, we need our road network to be able to support volumes of traffic and to be able to support people moving in and out of their place of residence. Some of the objections which were raised in this development were around increased traffic, removal of vegetation, and as I did mention, some of those conditions contained in the report do address some of these concerns. In particularly around the vegetation, this development would be required to keep some of that vegetation on site, along with that detailed landscape plan which has to be submitted. Around the increased traffic, the traffic reports have shown that the council are of the belief, the traffic engineers believe, that there is adequate infrastructure to deal with that additional traffic load. And once again, I would recommend that if interested, people look at the 50 conditions. It's not often that we have 50 conditions on any development, and this is quite unprecedented. So please do have a look at that. This development is consistent with our planning scheme and also the state planning frameworks. The area is surrounded by medium density housing. So in some ways, this particular block of land is filling in that gap within the development of the area. And I guess creating those high densities around public transport networks and open space where people can engage with passive recreation, and eventually that will be home, the open space opposite this development, Don Jackson Reserve, to a regional dog park as well, which will be good up-and-coming infrastructure. But along that, it's close to schools. and as I mentioned, public transport. So in my opinion, this is, I guess, of higher benefit in some ways to fill in some of that development than contributing to the current urban sprawl, which we're seeing across the municipality, heading out Pakenham East and outwards. So, look, I will be in support of this development. I do acknowledge the objections from the objectors, and I hope that those conditions have gone some way to alleviating some of those concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. Seconder to speak. Thank you, Councillor Jodie Owen.
Mayor, nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers either for or against the motion? If not, before going back to the mover to sum up, I'll just weigh into this just a little bit. I must say, having 50 conditions on an application can be a good thing, because if approved, they must abide by the 50 conditions that council will make sure that they do. If we were to knock it back and it went to VCAT, they could have the application approved with no conditions, or maybe only a few conditions if the Commissioner so pleases. So in some ways, the best result you can have with this is that Council looks at the objections, looks for any issues that they may be, and we put up conditions to make sure that we protect the residents from different things that could happen there. So in short, the best result we can have to make sure that we have some say in it is to put up a whole host of conditions. So as Councillor Schilling did point out, a lot of the conditions, some of them are based around the objections and the queries that people have and the things that they're worried about, to make sure that we can make sure that they don't do some of those things that people might think. Anyway, I will go back to the mover to sum up. Thank you, Councillor Schilling.
Thank you, Mayor. And look, I echo exactly what you're saying around conditions on a report. Even over the past 2 years, sitting on this council, we can acknowledge objectors' concerns, and we can even see ourselves that in some ways developments, in an ideal world, we would like to see, let's say, lower densities in an area. But at the end of the day, planning is a bit different to a lot of other issues we face in a council, where it is actually black and white, where we have a planning scheme, and if it fulfills all the requirements of a planning scheme, there is very little we can do as a council to say no. And if we are to say no, we've seen time and time again, VCAT being quite pro-development, will essentially get that application through. So I would rather see an outcome where we're able to, as a council, place conditions on a report, as the Mayor rightly said earlier, whereby we can get a better outcome for our local residents on that. So look, I'll be in support of this tonight, and I'll ask for council's support to go along with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. We'll go to a vote. All those in favour? All those in favour? Declared unanimously carried. Moving on to item number 3, use and development of the land for the dwelling at 740 7 Mile Road, Narnagoon. It's been withdrawn by Councillor Graham Moore. Thank you, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. I moved that a refusal to grant a planning permit T180349 be issued for the use and development of the land for a dwelling at 740 7 Mile Road, Narnagoon, Victoria 3812, for the reasons set out in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Do we have a second to the motion, please? Councillor Ray Brown. Back to the mover, Councillor Graham Moore. Thank you, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Brown, for the second. The planner has recommended a refusal to this application, and I'll make apologies now, Mr. Mayor, if I say unfortunately many times throughout this address. It is an unfortunate situation here. There are no objections, and you can understand why there have been no objections. Out on the land where it is out on 7 Mile Road, they're big holdings. And if you didn't understand that the planning scheme that we are regulated by, as the previous item was stated, we are regulated by regulations, and these planning schemes put us into a position sometimes that don't seem logical. The application seeks permission to construct and the use of the land for the purpose of a dwelling at 747 Mile Road, Narnagoon. It has been considered that the proposal is inconsistent with the purpose and decision guidelines of a special use zone, and that's what the land is. It's a special use zone. In that dwelling is not reasonably required for the operation of a rural activity on the subject site. Although not a large property, Mr. Mayor, allowing a dwelling will result in the permanent loss of agricultural land. The introduction of a rural residential use on the property will lead to a potential conflict between residents and the surrounding farming areas and their activities. Although a dwelling is not a prohibited use in a special use zone, scheme number 1, it is inappropriate for this situation. Just inappropriate. It's unfortunate, again, as I say, that it's got to this situation. When a block has been left for 18 years, it's been 18 years since the realignment of this particular property, back 18 years ago, and I think there's been at least 3 planning ministers through that period who change as they go through the system. So it's unfortunate that it gets to a point where this block of land has been through that system or through those years, which now, under the rules and regulations we have now, don't allow that actually dwelling to be constructed on their site, which is a shame. Because back in July 2000 it was, the boundary alignment was approved to increase the lot size from 0.25 hectare to 1 hectare. And there's been no permit activity since that time, since 2000, which creates a bit of an issue for us. I'll allow my seconder to speak if he would like to say a few words on this particular item. I don't want to speak all night to the item, and I'll hand it back to you, Mr. Mayor, for the moment. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Going to seconder to speak. Thank you, Councillor Ray Brown.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Moore, for withdrawing this item. And like yourself, I think this, or I feel that this is an unfortunate situation. It was proposed for a family member to live in this hectare on the corner of the property, and as you say, back in 2000 it probably may have been possible, but there have been changes. I think the special use zone Schedule 1 speaks for itself in the fact that you must establish that the dwelling is required, reasonably required, to operate a rural activity on the land. That is on the specific bit of land, not the land next door, the specific bit of land where it's going to be built. I note that the application has stated that there are going to be some orchards and some vegetable patches on the land, but I don't think that is reasonable to assume that that is a large agricultural undertaking. It's also noted that this situation has 2 titles, and whilst the son of the operator may occupy the house now, it could be sold at a later date, because we're talking about the land itself here, not the occupant, the land. And once the land is gone, as you say, it cannot be replaced. It cannot be absorbed into the larger property. It's gone forever. And particularly if you get somebody coming there and they do have some rural residential, it opens the floodgates for other people to take up the same type of options. As you said, it's state government, local planning. There's very little we can do about it as a council. We can knock it back. Tribunals have, and there's plenty of examples in the report of tribunals upholding the refusal to these applications. So it's unfortunate, but I must endorse the decision of the planning people in this regard. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Do I have any other speakers either for or against the motion? If not, we will go back to the mover to sum up. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Graham Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Brown, for your comments. As it is, this is not personal. This is nothing against anyone personally. It's the way the scheme is. And in summary, I'll explain. The application is inconsistent with the local and state guidelines, which aims to protect agricultural land from incompatible uses, diminish agricultural values, and create conflict between agricultural uses and residential uses. Importantly, the proposal is against Council's own adopted policy, the Western Port Greenwich Policy and Plan, which we created and support, which requires Council to protect our high-quality agricultural land, as we're not getting any more of this. This is where we're losing it all. So it's a matter of, with our development, we've got one of the fastest growing regions of the area with Cardinia, and that's where our problem is with our agricultural land. It's unfortunate, again, I must say that word again, Mr Mayor, because it is unfortunate this situation comes along like this, because we can't let a precedent be set. There are many people have approached Councillor Brown and I in the past of trying to get a 5-acre cut out of a 40-acre block of land for their children. And that used to be once upon a time, went back in the good old days, and I say they've gone, which is unfortunate. But where we have to understand, if we do that, we have to set up infrastructure that goes with those developments. That block will create children for the school, it'll create a lot of things. And so therefore, you just can't have the planning scheme willy-nilly, as you might say, just cutting up blocks on other blocks. And so therefore, it is unfortunate, again, Mr Mayor, but that's the laws of the land, and we're subject to the laws of the land, and we just got to live by those things. So it's the way it must be. So I will ask my fellow councillors to vote in the positive manner. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. We'll go to a vote. All those in favour? Declared unanimously carried. Moving on to item number 4, SGJD Community Housing Project, withdrawn by Councillor Michael Schilling. Thank you, Councillor Schilling.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight I'd like to withdraw the officer's recommendation that Council resolves to give public notice in accordance to provision of Section 190 and 223 of the Local Government Act 1989 of the proposal to lease 21 Stringybark Circuit Pakenham to a registered housing agency under Housing Act 1983 by private agreement in accordance with council policy and for the purpose of providing affordable housing. The lease will be conditional upon a planning permit being issued by council. The principal terms of the lease will be a fixed year term of 50 years, commencement date pending certificate of occupancy, the rent nominal. In the event of submissions being received, the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to make agreements to hear such submissions, and if Council resolves to enter into the lease of the land and the development agreement with the Victorian Homelessness Foundation, be executed on the key terms set out in the report once the final form of the agreement has been agreed to by all parties.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. Do I have a second to the motion? Councillor Jodie Owen. Mover to speak. Thank you, Councillor Schilling.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Owen, for seconding this recommendation. On Monday, the 27th of August, councillors were briefed on a potential partnership between the Victorian Homeless Fund, which is the VHF, I'll refer to it as that, and SJD Homes in the construction of a family home. As mentioned just before in the recommendation, this proposal, council will be leasing the land for a period of 50 years. The land is currently in our ownership, whereby SJD would build the dwelling and engage local traders to donate materials. The VHF would seek funds through community corporate donations for the provision and labour, and obviously for some of the administrative costs associated with the project. Council would have no additional responsibility in terms of maintenance of this house, building or tenant management. Just a background for those who aren't familiar with this organisation, VHF, who would be providing the funding for the project, were established in 1987, and they were formed as part of a charitable organisation, and their sole purpose is to work in the area of homelessness. And since their inception, they have provided housing to approximately 300 people. They have donated an estimated $9 million worth of housing stock across Victoria and have recently completed a successful project in Carrum Downs and are now in the process of constructing a family home in Ashwood. This project would see a 3 to 4 bedroom house aimed at providing transitional housing for women and children impacted by family violence. VHF partners with community housing, providers to ensure the wraparound model of support, which gives people the best possible chance to get back on their feet. And this is an important aspect to the project. And this is what sets social housing apart from the rest. Social housing provides support to people who are in need. There is no use in providing a house and saying, we're providing shelter here for people in need, and there you go, there's your house, now get better. That's doesn't work. That's contrary to any best practice which is out there. What people need to succeed and to get back on their feet is a wraparound service model whereby they're supported and their needs are met for a period of time. So this proposal brings that combination together to make sure this can happen. Now, the history of Stringy Bark, in 2004, this land was transferred to council as part of an open space contribution. In August 2017, the land was considered access to council needs. So this essentially is a residential block in the Lakeside estate. So look, in terms of open space contribution, it literally is a housing block in the housing estate. So there's probably, in terms of open space and passive recreation, there's very little that council could do with that. I'd also like to note that there has been successful social housing projects across the Lakeside estate, which people already are seeing the benefit from. In my opinion, Stringy Bark, you won't find a better location for such a project. It's within a walking distance to a primary school, and in the coming years it will also be in walking distance to a secondary school, which is fantastic. It's a short walk to a train station. We can't assume that everyone has access to a private car, and relying on public transport networks is absolutely essential in ensuring people are able to get to appointments, are able to get to work and to wherever their life takes them. It's also a close distance to fresh food, open recreation, medical services. If we talk about, and I reference this quite regularly in general council meetings and town planning meetings, the document we endorsed, I think it was early 2017, about the 20-minute community. To build a successful community, people must be within walking distance to the key building blocks in life, which are around medical facilities, fresh food, and services that promote healthy living. And that's exactly what this site does for people. I'm probably going to leave it there and hand over to my seconder. I do hope council do get behind this project today. It's a single house, 3 to 4 bedroom house, situated in a quiet neighbourhood, which once again does provide optimal living conditions for people in need. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. Seconder to speak. Thank you, Councillor Jodie Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Schilling has done an excellent job of summing this project up, but I'll add just a little bit further. We've seen lately that a few of these social housing projects have come before council, and I can understand some residents are a little bit careful of what's going on. Is it going to affect me? I can honestly say that whoever moves into this house will be like no other family moving into your house. The only difference is they may be a single parent family and they'll probably just look like you or I. I can say this why? Because I escaped domestic violence, and everybody needs help at some stage in their life. I was blessed to have a beautiful family who got behind me and helped me to recover to where I am today. I will always support social housing because I know that there is hundreds of men and women, but I will say it again, men and women, who are targeted in this sort of environment. And it's actually been proven that if you live in a house of a lower quality, it actually will have more stress mentally on you than if you live in a nice home with area where you know your children can walk safely to school, you know you can get on a bus, you know you can get on a train. This is really important, and as Cardinia grows, I have no doubt that we'll see other projects like this come up, and I really hope as a council we do get behind them. To say why is council getting involved? At the end of the day, the block of land has been valued at approximately $300,000. To have a housing company such as SJ Homes come on and offer this house, why wouldn't we? Everyone living in Cardinia should be safe, secure, and feel that they're part of a community. And I really think a project like this shows that when a new neighbour builds a house in your street, you don't want to walk down and ask them 50 questions. Why did you buy the house? What have you done? The best way is you just get on with life. So when this house goes up in Stringy Bark, it's a shame that we've had to mention the address due to it coming here to a council meeting, because I don't doubt in 2-3 years after it's been up a while, no one will have any idea that it's a social housing house. They'll just think it's a house, maybe a tenanted house, because there's frequent changes in who lives there. But there will be no drugs, there will be no alcohol, there will be no problems. These people are simply people who are at a point in their life where they need support. And with what they're going through, to see some of the stuff that's happening out in social media and other platforms, putting further stigma on them is not helping them. So I will support this, and I also admit that I will debate and support any other projects that come to council where I can see there is a valid reason for us to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jodie Owen. Do I have any other speakers either for or against? Councillor Brett Owen. Thank you, Councillor Owen, and then Councillor Moore. Thank you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. I just want to acknowledge SJD Homes. As the report says, SJD Homes is a local builder that has been building homes in Cardinia Shire for over 20 years. The company is committed to serving and giving back to the community and does so in many ways. SJD will build one of its range of quality houses using materials and labour donated by a wide range of suppliers and contractors, many of whom are also local. So I just wanted to highlight Simon Dunstan from SJD Homes. He's a very generous person, and this is just one project he's working on to benefit the wider Cardinia community. There are many others. So I commend Simon and his team at SJD Homes, and also any other sort of contractors that will work with him that will deliver this. We should see more of this generosity in our Shire, and if we as a council can encourage similar other generous people to do so, that will be a great outcome. Our Cardinia Shire Council is committed to assisting with the lack of social housing in our Shire. This business is also assisting. Let's call upon others to assist. So I just want to acknowledge the great work by them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brett Owen. Do I have any other speakers either for or against the motion? Councillor Graham Moore. Thank you, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I want to echo the words of Councillor Brett Owen. That's exactly what I want to say. And I want to reinforce it because this is a great builder. SJD Homes has been here for 20 years. As mentioned, Simon is a giver. He gives back to our community, and I'm sure he will align and bring on board the contractors that he uses, and they will donate to this fantastic project. I'm all for this. I'm happy to be criticised, if that's the case, of supporting our homeless people, our people that are vulnerable in our community. Criticise me if you like, because I think this is a great project, and I think we're looking back in a few years' time to say this is the right decision to make. It sits beautifully with our Together We Can program. We're all with this Together We Can program, and that's exactly what this building's about, to support these people that are vulnerable in our community. So, okay, we get criticised sometimes for not for supporting things that maybe state government should support, and we are, but they are our community and they are our local community, and so I think these protective housing, these affordable housing where we're doing at the moment is a great program. I was speaking to a councillor or two from Casey yesterday, and they say what a wonderful job we're doing in doing this, and I think they're dead right, and so I'm all for this, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Schilling, for bringing this up. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Graham Moore. Do I have any other speakers either for or against the motion before I go back to the mover to sum up? If not, I will say a few words. I must say SJD Homes are a real credit to the Shire. They're a locally based group. They build quality homes. Recently, I actually went down with the Minister, Lily D'Ambrosio, who gave over $1 million towards their project on zero emissions properties. I must say Park Lee had a block of land that they'd contributed to the whole development as well, and it came up with a 7.3 star rating, and it's a base level property, so people on entry point can come in on zero emissions, which I think is really, really responsible. It sets a really good standard in our Shire, and I think that needs to be noted. So the group who's doing it has a great social responsibility. They set a really good standard in the community, and that should be promoted and respected. I must say this falls in line with the Royal Commission, who gave recommendations into the family violence issue, and part of that recommendations was to create housing for those fleeing the situations, because as they report, the most dangerous time for people is when they first let their partner know that they're going to do something about it or they're going to leave. So ongoing from that is emergency housing, but after that comes housing for people to have some certainty about where their children can go to school. If it can be local, it even benefits more because they can go to the local school which they attend already. Moving on from that, council, as you know, we had a report that came to council a couple of years ago that was really enlightening for us, and very saddening to think that we had family violence in front of children to an extent that was the #1 in Victoria. Council could not sit back and say we will do nothing, even though 98% of what we do is just running the organisation for the services that need to be provided in infrastructure. So council set about a pathway to say we must do something different. We can't just sit by and let this happen. So the Together We Can project was developed. And out the back end of that, without going into a long story, it's had over a 28% reduction in the worst sort of family violence. So that is an amazing result. It's won two awards nationally for the project. And I must say, part of that comes when you get to the point where it says, what are you going to do about housing as part of it? You can either sit back. There's a lot of people who talk the talk, who say, yep, we all agree, it's all terrible, something should be done, and a whole lot of it. But a whole lot of people don't put their hand up to do anything. And I know this council, and I'm very proud of it, the fact that we said, what assets do we have that we really don't use or are sitting there that we might be able to assist with this issue? Now, we don't propose that we are the solution to all things. We are part of the solution, and part of the solution is doing something about this that sets a standard for others to have a look at and say, do you know what, we can make a difference, we can do something. Councillor Letitia Wilmot brought up the other day, in the life of some of these homes, you will see over 300 people go through during the life of the lease. But if we can change some lives of the people who go through these places and the children who live in them to have a really good lifestyle, like they can go on in life without being totally damaged by the whole experience, we are making a difference. And I'm really proud to say that our council steps up and we say, what can we do? And we want to be part of the solution. And this is part of the solution. SJD Homes has put their hand up. They've said they'll amass more money from people out in the community, not all council's money, to have a solution for this. So I'm fully behind the fact that we are responsible, and I believe our community would... If you talk to anyone in the community, they will tell you something needs to be done. It is terrible that these things happen. Well, people should be proud of the fact that we are going to be part of the solution. We are going to do something. And this is only one of the things that we're doing as to finding part of the solution. And hopefully we can get some amazing results out of this, like we did with Together We Can, and other people will benchmark off that. The Together We Can project was given $35,000 the council the other day to take it to Bass Coast, that we can actually implement our program down there and get them off and running to try and help them to do something different to what they're doing right now. So anyway, people have heard enough from me. I'll go back to the mover to sum up. Thank you, Councillor Schilling.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your words as well. It's incredibly true what you're saying, and thank you to all the other councillors as well that shared their stories and also spoke in favour of this. Look, fundamentally, I'm of the belief that as a government, the way that we are judged is how we treat our communities most vulnerable. At the end of the day, that's a true judgment of the success of any type of government, is how we look after people. And I guess it's just important. I know that sometimes, look, I know this is an emotional issue, and look, and as councillors, we're all people as well. So obviously there are people who are not supportive of these projects, and we hear those objections. At the same time, we have to be mindful that a different roll of the dice, we could be in that exact same situation ourselves and be needing that type of support. So while we are here around this table with the ability to make these decisions, it's important to make the right decisions that do care for the family, because those protective factors can be removed at any time. And look, there has been a bit of a narrative around why doesn't a state government responsibility. I believe that attitude is something that everyone hates in politicians, passing the buck to another level of government. Well, I sit on this council, that's not happening. If there's an issue that needs to be fixed, an issue that we see in our community, and there's inaction on other levels of government, or perhaps not action where we particularly need it, it is our job to fill the void. And whilst we have to advocate for better services, when opportunities like this come up, we really have to jump at them and get behind them. And I'd like to thank Councillor Moore and Councillor Ross and Councillor Owen as well for mentioning SJD Homes. This is a very generous offer that they've put on the table, and one that, as a community we should all be very grateful for. Look, just in conclusion, this project sits within all of our council's strategic documents relating to the welfare of our community. One of them is around our livability plan, which once again I like to reference in council meetings because it is such an important document that we have. We know that housing has been identified as a critical issue for the Cardinia community, particularly around the availability of cheaper housing stock. So this project fits in with that. And also, look, Together We Can has been mentioned, and that's very true. We know that Together We Can is a collective impact which aims at preventing family violence. And I guess we all know, and the evidence tells us that prevention is better than cure, but preventative measures don't always work, and there will always be people that fall through the gaps, and there has to be a safety net to catch them at the other end. So this is what this project is about. So what I'm asking tonight is that Council support the public notice and agree that if submissions are received, that our CEO, being Miss Carol Jeffs, our newly appointed CEO, be authorised to hear those submissions. And then if Council resolves to enter the agreement, that we execute the lease in the terms set out in the report once we have final agreement from all parties. But I'll leave it at there, but would recommend that councillors get behind this project tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. I'll just say a couple of more things before we go to a vote, which is out of order, but I'm the Mayor, so I can be out of order. At my last General Council meeting, I must say, the other day at the Together We Can conference, I know that the major parties were there and the minor parties were there, and everyone was in strong agreement that something has to be done about this. It goes beyond politics, the fact that people do something about the unacceptable nature of family violence and people who are fleeing it. I must say, I'm yet to hear anyone oppose any development or any project that people are trying to do something about. And I must say, you know, that as a society, we're better than that. We're better than to sit back and do nothing. Australia was founded by people who are mostly out of luck. Whether it was around the world, their countries they lived in, or whatever happened, people came here because they wanted to have a crack at having a new opportunity in life. And that's what we did. And for a lot of people out there, they're out of luck too. Something's happened in their life that's turned really bad, and they're out of luck. And it's our job to help these people, like Australia did for all of us. So anyway, you've heard enough of that. We will go to a vote. Thank you, Councillor Schilling, and the other councillors who all summed up what we're doing in social housing here and the fact that we do need to do something because we are better than that. Anyway, we'll go to a vote. All those in favour? Declared unanimously carried. Moving on to item number 5, appointment of members to Cardinia Access and Inclusion Advisory Committee. And this has been withdrawn by Councillor Brett Owen. Thank you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the following, that the following members be appointed to the Cardinia Access and Inclusion Advisory Committee. Community Representative Michael Wright, Community Group Representative Dennis Alexander Hale, and Disability Sector Representative Frank Meegans. I've moved so.
Thank you, Councillor Brett Owen. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Graham Moore. Sorry, Councillor Shilling. Councillor Graham Moore, seconded. Back to the mover to sum up. Oh, no, back to the mover to speak to the motion. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Graham Moore, Councillor Graham Moore, and Councillor Shilling, that will speak very shortly. I just wanted to talk about this. This is a great committee that myself and Councillor Shilling is on. The AGM was on the 19th of September. Each year we have 3 vacancies sort of up for re-election, and it was great to see that the meeting confirmed the appointments of Michael Wright, who's a strong advocate, also works for Outlook, I believe. He's as the community representative. You've got Dennis Alexander Hale, who's a community group representative. He returns to the committee. He's representing the Emerald Community House. Dennis is a very strong advocate for access. And also Frank Meegans. He was reappointed for the disability sector representative. And Frank was unanimously supported to continue the role as chairperson. So Frank does a great job in that role. Deputy Chair was elected Shauna Stevens, past chairperson, that was a really good appointment as well. I just wanted to note that this is a great committee. At that AGM, the annual report was presented, and I will make sure that all councillors see this annual report that was presented by the chairperson. It's a really good summary of the achievements of the group, and also what it intends to do in the forthcoming year. So I'll make sure that is distributed. So I welcome other councillors' comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brett Owen. Seconded to speak. Thank you, Councillor Graham Moore.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Owen, for bringing this up. I must note that you ran the AGM and did a great job of running the AGM on that day, and I want to thank you for allowing me to speak. I spoke on that AGM, and thank you very much for allowing me to do that, because it's a great group. And I thank you for your driving. You drive this advisory group very well, Councillor Owen. You do a great job, and of course with the staff, with Marcia, doing a really good, great job. The team, we've got a really good team behind this. One of the things that's really refreshing to have is when you get the community stand up and become community members and committee members of these groups. We're finding it very thin out there in the community to get committee members to stand up and be counted and be on committees that are like this. I don't care where you're in Bunyip right through to Lang right up to the hills at Emerald. We've got the same issue and the same people. You see the same names over and over again in different committees, but they're the same people. So it's becoming a very unfortunate, I've said unfortunate a lot this evening, Mr Mayor, unfortunate situation to have in our community, to see the same people doing the same things and not having new blood come into this. And I get asked quite often, where are young people? Where are young people going onto these committees? And I talk about young people like our own Councillor Shilling going onto these type of committees, and it's a very difficult thing to explain. What are we going to do in the future? Because I think the days of committees and committee meetings of night are going to come to a close. We're going to have Skype or on iPads or whatever is going to be there'll be our new committees, I'm sure, down the track. But this is a great committee, and I really enjoyed being there on the AGM that was run so beautifully on the day. So it was good. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Graham Moore. Do I have any other speakers? Thank you, Councillor Shilling.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Moore, as well. Good comments. So yeah, I have the pleasure of sitting on this committee with Councillor Owen, and unfortunately I was unable to make it to the AGM. I was away, and it's a great shame because I could. The report looks fantastic, and this committee does a lot of work. And I echo exactly what Councillor Moore was speaking about young people on committees. It is important that we encourage. And mentioning digital meetings, I was on a youth committee meeting last week where we actually used a Skype to. So that's exactly what's happening. Look, I'd like to congratulate the newly appointed members to the committee. It's an incredibly hard-working committee, and the issue of access and inclusion is an important one around Cardinia Shire. We have the enhanced disability standard, as we all know, for new council buildings. So all new council buildings are completely accessible for people with disabilities. And looking at the future of accessible toilets, we're now looking at our enhanced standard toilets as well, which have state-of-the-art changing facilities also within them. But the big issue we face as a shire is our current existing facilities and making sure that they're up to scratch. So this committee pretty much runs on a tiny budget of about $200,000 a year, which I'm told to be grateful for because it started off as about $50,000 a year a few years back. So out of that small budget, this committee manages small-scale upgrades across our council facilities to make them accessible for people. We all know there should be no barriers to people being able to access anything in the community. This committee plays an incredibly important role in making sure this happens. And if I'm lucky enough to be re-elected to this committee for another 12 months, I look forward to working with them all to see all their goals and actions achieved in the 2019 year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Michael Schilling. Do I have any other speakers either for or against the motion? If not, I'll just concur with my fellow councillors on this. I must say this council and the last council that I sat on had lifted the standard in this area to a new height. It was correct, Councillor Schilling, it was about $50,000 a year. Now it's about $200,000 a year. And I must say the things that we've seen through this group and through their advocacy has been amazing. Playgrounds now have all abilities playgrounds with swings in them for all people to enjoy. We also have amenities like toilets, where we now consider that as one of the most important things, like down at the library, where we've got an amazing setup there, which was help funded by state government of the day towards building that for people in wheelchairs and the like. Also, too, our buildings today are built in a way considering those less fortunate than ourselves who struggle to get round but still want to be actively part of the community. Our streetscapes have had to be upgraded because for those who know with a disability, quite often they were built a long time ago, and if you've got to get up a small step or up a ramp or go down something that's too steep, it makes it incredibly difficult and probably might discourage you from actually participating and going out to do things. I must say the extra funds in the budget have made it possible to go out and have a look at different projects. And the small things, even as small as they may be, like putting a power point in the main street so they can charge up their scooters, can make the whole difference between somebody coming down the street and participating or sitting at home and doing nothing and having to get someone else to come along. So anyway, I commend these people coming on. I think the group does a sensational job, and I will go back to the mover to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors, for your support of this committee. I just wanted to mention, sorry, I forgot to mention Ron Harmer. He was re-elected as Secretary, a very, very important job that not many people want to do, but as Secretary, but thank you, Ron. It was, I just wanted to highlight, we talked about the upgrades that this committee oversees, and we all know that council has a budget of $150,000, and that is really stretched, and the money is used to the best of council's ability to improve access. So I just wanted to talk about that. There's been 11 audits at various locations, such as kindergartens and community centres. That was a total of 26,000. So the purpose of those audits to identify what needs to be done in the future, so that can be considered for future upgrades. Actual upgrades occurred at the Emerald Lake Park, accessible toilet, Garfield Bowls Club with a widening of an access door, Gembrook Kinder, an accessible ramp and car park, $42,000, Nanagoon Community Centre, accessible car park. The Pakenham Bowls Club, which I'm really happy about, was an accessible car park and entry doors, including a new auto door. If anyone's been into the Pakenham Senior Citizens, you've got the old, heavy push-pull doors, and that's really not appropriate when people were, accessing the club in, motorised scooters, and so it's really important. So I was really happy about that upgrade. That's been planned for a long time. I remember Councillor Schilling and I attended there probably a year and a half ago, where that was highlighted as a real concern, and that made the list. Just want to mention that, as you talked about, Councillor Moore, that at that meeting it was really good that we had a cross the board coverage of various departments of council at this AGM, and it's really important that all council departments are thinking in this space, access and inclusion. I remember when I was on this committee 10 years ago, it's fair to say, unfortunately, you had one officer really that was looking in this space of access and inclusion, and over time that has really changed. The mindset is that it's all our responsibility to improve access and inclusion. So it was really great that people from across the organisation attended. At this AGM, we had the guest speaker, Eva Sifis. She was an amazing person who's talked about her acquired brain injury, her story, and building a new you. And she did have a arts element to that. It was really great, Councillor Moore, to have your feedback and your views on that. So, and finally, I just want to thank Marcia Kataray. She's a real fantastic officer in this space. She's so passionate about access and inclusion, and she is persistent. And I share with her persistency, and I just want to thank her. Thanks, councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. We'll go to a vote. All those in favour? Declared unanimously carried. Moving on to item number 7, contract 1830 of Officer Recreational Reserve, Oval number 2, realignment, withdrawn by Councillor Brett Owen. Thank you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the following. The tender submitted by SJM Turf and Civil to undertake the works associated with the contract 18/30 Officer Recreation Reserve, Oval number 2, realignment be accepted for the contract sum of $929,422, excluding GST. The remaining tenderers be advised accordingly, and the common seal of the council be affixed to the contract documents.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. A seconder, please. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Jeff Springfield. Back to the mover. Thank you, Councillor Brett Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Jeff Springfield. So this package of works includes the reshaping of the oval subsurface drainage, oval irrigation and perimeter fence. This project has been long awaited. This has not just been thought about in recent years. It's actually been on a list, I think, close to 8-10 years. So eventually this oval gets a Guernsey, and it is our number one priority for resurfacing. Long history, Officer Rec Reserve, and Councillor Springfield and I were speaking to a representative, Mr. Rob Porter, who's been the chairperson of the Rec Reserve Committee for over 50 years, and he told us that the history of that Rec Reserve, that has not always been owned by council. That was gifted by various sort of key officer people many years ago, probably close to over 50 years ago, but it was gifted to council. So it's good to remember that. But I just think it's really good. We know this oval is well utilised. It's in the middle of the booming town of Officer. This upgrade is required. It needs to be realigned. It's not ideal. Ovals should be basically north-south. This oval's sort of east-west. So it's not ideal for a playing perspective. So it's quite a interesting shape as well. So to resurface this and provide, our growing town of Officer with this upgrade is really important. Some exciting things are happening at Officer Rec Reserve, and this is one of them. So we obviously went to tender. The SJM Turf and Civil, it was the most advantageous to council, so we are recommending approval of that tender. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Seconder to speak. Thank you, Councillor Jeff Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Owen. I fully support the realignment of the second oval and the upgrades associated with that. We've got some great community clubs operating out of the Officer Rec Reserve, and it's in such a central location for where we are right here. It's just down the road over there, and even though opposite us and beside us looks a bit empty at this point in time, in 10 years' time, all of this will be bustling and be, it's going to be built up extensively. So getting works underway down at the Rec Reserve over there is well overdue, as I understand, and going to be surely welcomed by the community. So I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Do I have any other speakers? I do. Thank you, Councillor Graham Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. I fully support the this realignment. This is, I believe, was Oval 1. Now it's Oval 2. Would that be right? So it's the original oval of Officer, and I could understand it would be in comparison to the new super duper oval that they have. They've got some great facilities over there at Officer, I notice. So it's a really it is due to be upgraded, and it's no good having an oval these days that you can't play on properly, because today they need to be proper turf, and that's what we have. So that's why we upgrade all our ovals to suit, and that's why this is a great result. And I note that SJM Turf and Civil have worked for a lot of councils, not just Cardinia as well. They've worked for City of Whitehorse, and they've worked for Hobson Bay, so that they come highly recommended to do this type of construction. And I think the location of the oval, the way it's sitting, is what you call unique. Just because it's sitting the wrong way, it gives a bit of competition to the other sides of somewhere different to play on a windy day, to be entertaining, I would say, more than anything else. So it's unique more than anything else. So I'm looking forward to this redevelopment. I think it's wonderful that we invest in our sporting clubs. Probably a lot more than our neighbouring councils in a lot of ways. So it's just really great that we support our sporting clubs all right throughout our Shire, and our young people. I was saying that before, supporting their sports and that for down the track. So it's a really good thing. So I've got no problems at all with supporting this particular item, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Graham Moore. Do I have any other speakers either for or against the motion? Not you, Councillor Owen? No? Your hand went no. I'll say a few things. I can actually remember this actually came up in, I think, my first budget on council over 10 years ago, and I can remember at the time they didn't even have a site development plan for the Officer Reserve, which means then you can't actually get a whole lot of things done because there's no plan for it and there's no idea on how the makeup of the reserve would be made up. So the site development plan sort of makes up a master plan for the actual site. I think at the time we spent about $50,000 getting a design done of the site so we could actually work out how it would all function properly and how we could get funding for it. I must say, this actual project of the realignment of the number one oval at the time was actually the number one thing on the action plan. It should have been done first, the realignment, because the problem what you have was you've got this thing aligned in a funny shape, and if you're going to build a second oval, you're going to have one shaped like this and the other one like this. So therefore, how do you put pavilions in it or different things or roads or whatever, because they're a really funny shape? If you line this one up like this, and then you have the other one built here, it's all uniform, which makes it really, really easy to find building platforms that you can put pavilions on and things like that. So this actually was the number one, and we actually said at the time, by creating a master plan or a site development plan, does this actually lead people into believing that everything needs to be done in the next 5 minutes or the next year? And we actually said at the time, this might be 10 or 15 years down the track before these things would be done. Well, the oval number 2 came, which now is their number one oval. And then we had different things. I think the tennis club and the netball club and everything else have been done in an amazing way that sets an amazing standard. And now that we have, so because we're all about inclusion for all, which means now, for the very first time, we're seeing in our history of sports that women are starting to get an opportunity to play sport as well at the same level as guys in AFL and everything. So we need more of these facilities up to a really good standard. And I must say that oval now, for anyone who sees it, it's probably well, maybe not quite as good as it's ever been, but it was like that for about 40 years until about 10 years ago. So anyway, it's well overdue. I must say the whole site down there for new residents who move in is a really good asset. So I'll support this. This should have been the number 2 thing that we did down there. But anyway, better late than never. So I'll support this. Are there any other speakers either for or against the motion? If not, I'll go back to the mover to sum up. Thank you, Councillor Brett Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank you, councillors, for your comments. I just want to thank the officers involved. I know they've been consulting with the Committee of Management. They've got a passionate group of community representatives attached to the Rec Reserve Committee of Management, and they definitely had views on the design and how the project should be delivered. So I understand a lot of those comments have been taken on board, and the Committee of Management is very pleased with the process and the preferred tenderer. So I look forward to the works happening. Obviously, there'll be a requirement for many of the officer teams to go over to Heatherbray, because Heatherbray has been a bit of a overflow for rec reserves that are undertaking resurfacing. So Heatherbray will be really packed now, but we look forward to this upgrade, a fantastic upgrade. And thank you, councillors, for your support.
Thank you, Councillor Brett Owen. We'll go to a vote. All those in favour? Declared unanimously carried. Moving on to item number 8, contract 1806, mobile library trailer replacement, withdrawn by Councillor Jodie Owen. Thank you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. The recommendation is that Council accepts the tender by BCVT Proprietary Limited for the supply of a new mobile library trailer featuring a single flat floor and dual entries for the contract sum of $668,617 excluding GST. The common seal of Council be affixed to the contract documents and that all tenderers be advised accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor Jodie Owen. Do I have a seconder, please, for this motion? Councillor Ray Brown. Back to the mover. Thank you, Councillor Jodie Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a really good news story. A while ago, with everything going electronic, we thought that books were a thing of the past, and that is simply not true. This trailer, which was delivered way back now in 1999, has had approximately 57,000 visits per annum, and it operates 6 days a week, servicing 11 of our rural towns within Cardinia Shire. Sadly, because it was in 1999, and I'm not being ageist, it's a little old and it's a little tired. So it's time that we got a better facility. And as we've spoken about earlier here tonight, we are all for accessibility for all, and that is why this trailer is designed differently so that it will stand up to the standards we're saying we want in relation to accessibility. Also improve lighting, heating and cooling. As part of Casey Cardinia Library Corporation, under the Living Libraries Fund, an application was made back in September 2017, and we received a grant of $327,000, which will be put to use to buy this trailer. The remaining sum will be, well, actually, the remaining sum, there have been other grant offers put out, and we're currently to see if any of those have been granted any money. But if not, then the balance will come from Casey and Cardinia, as we both have shares in the Library Corporation. But that's it. I think this is a fantastic thing. I know I mentioned it today at school about the library, and I was told by many of the kids that when they're at primary school, they sort of really look forward to the library trailer coming so they could exchange their books or get a new book for Nan or Mum to read to them. So I think this is a really good story, and I really hope that you will support me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Seconder to speak. Thank you, Councillor Ray Brown.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Owen, for moving this motion. The library, it's very well thought of in Cooey Rup, I know that for a fact, and when I first came to Cooey-Rupp, we didn't know where we were going to park it. And when it arrived, I was chairman of the township committee at the time, and we looked at a few spots around the place. And unfortunately, and I don't mean anything by this, but it was a little girl was driving it. She was very tiny. And I said, how are you driving that thing? She said, oh, it's pretty tough, you know. And so I said, well, I'll park it for you. So I parked it for her, and I hit a car, and it was my car. It was my car, but I had parked at the back.
Have you had a licence, Councillor
That's
Brown?
all right. I just nicked it. And then went forward again, then backed in again, and I took a bit of veranda off. So she said to me, if you don't mind, my boss will be furious about this, I better park it. So she parked.
You want to continue the story,
No, that's
Councillor
okay.
Brown?
It's a bit of, bit of history. And now I see these people driving this bus now, and they're very proficient. And not only proficient in driving, in respect of the job they do. Nothing's too much trouble for them, particularly in Cooey-Rupp. And as you're probably aware, we have the Cooey-Rupp Regional Health Service at Cooey-Rupp, and those people use the library. The patients that the staff show there are quite extraordinary. They help them on, and unfortunately, it's hard to get them on and hard to get them off. And this library that's going to have this access is going to make it a lot easier for those people who are a little bit doddery. Also, in the early days, trying to find a PowerPoint was another thing to fire up the heating and the cooling. I know they've moved on from that, and it's a lot better now. But it is a busy library. I don't know what we do without it, really, because looking at the figures here, 57,000 visits per annum, 6 days a week, servicing 11 rural towns within Cardinia. Supports the Shire with only 2 permanent libraries, and that's at Emerald and Pakenham. Of course, we've got Bunjil down there in Casey, which is an exceptional facility there. But the old mobile library going to get a facelift. It's going to really look good. I know the community are really going to appreciate it. So it's just now putting something in place which has been there for years and years and years, and all of a sudden it's going to be upgraded. Also, I guess, with computers and internet access as well. So well done, and I'm glad that we're able to do this, because it's nearly 20 years old, that old bus, and I shudder every time I see it, and I won't shudder with the new one, and I promise I won't go near it. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Do we have any other speakers, either for or against? We have Councillor Graham Moore. Thank you, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to echo my fellow councillors' comments about this new trailer. And I want to also thank my 2 councillors that just spoke. They're on the committee, the library committee, which is really great to see you on board there and supporting these committees we have. It gets back to the old situation here, Mr. Mayor, that we bring it to the people. If the people can't come to the libraries, we are advanced enough 20 years ago to bring these libraries to our people. And it pleases me, like you wouldn't believe. I get excited about when I see the mobile library in Bunyip, where it's parked on Saturdays, because it's 6 days a week is a fantastic service. Garfield, where it's parked, and Nanagoon. I mean, it's really good to see these railway towns get supported in this manner. And I think what a great outcome that we've got. We've got to be really proud of this. Whenever I see the library, I go inside and talk to the people inside, and probably hold them up for too long, because I'm known to speak for a bit too long sometimes. And but I get excited about them there. I'll welcome the people from our community into the library. It's really a great thing to have, and there's nothing better than renewing it after all these years, and it's served us well. If it's been on the road for nearly 20 years and serviced all of our community. As you said, Councillor Brown, 57,000 visitors per annum is a lot of people. So I will support this all the way, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Do I have any other speakers either for or against the motion? If not, I'll just, before I go back to the mover to sum up, I'll just reiterate just the same stuff that's been added. I think it's a wonderful innovation, and whoever thought of doing it way back in the past was a fabulous idea, to think that they could take a library out to the people. The fact that our 11 rural towns benefit by having on average 57,000 visits in a year. And the fact that we didn't have to pay for the whole lot of it ourselves as a council, the fact that out of the 668,000, 327,000's come from the Living Libraries Fund. So obviously it's recognised by other people the good that it does, and they're willing to put in to help fund it. So I think that's wonderful. I hope we get 20 years out of the new one, and it should be noted, as Councillor Jodie Owen said, that this one is more all-inclusive friendly, so therefore more people should be able to access it instead of sitting outside and not being able to get up there and have a look at and get their books. So anyway, I'll go back to the mover to sum up. I think it's a really good thing, and I can't wait to see the new one out there. So back to the mover to sum up. Thank you, Councillor Jodie Owen.
Thank you, everyone, for this support. And maybe we have just reduced the cost that council needs to raise in relation to the trailer, because maybe Councillor Brown could chip in a few dollars, because maybe we need to inspect the trailer to see what damage was done all those years ago when he decided he was better at driving it than the poor driver. But in summing up, my fellow councillors, I just ask that you do accept this tender by BCVT Proprietary Limited, so as we can update to a beautiful new mobile library, and let's hope that that 57,000 per annum even becomes more, which I think it will, when people who have got limited abilities will be able to access everything. So really proud of this, and I think we do a great job in this area. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jodie Owen. We'll go to a vote. All those in favour? Declared unanimously carried. Moving on to item number 10, Major Projects and Strategies Activity Report, drawn by Councillor Brett Owen. Thank you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the report be noted.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Do I have a seconder for the noting of the report? Councillor Graham Moore. Back to the mover. Thank you, Councillor Brett Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Moore. We all know councillors like to talk to this report. I think it's really good. Of all the current activities happening at council, I'll briefly talk about a few. Rangers Ward councillors last Monday attended at Worrell Reserve, and it was really great to see works well underway. It's the redevelopment of the football and cricket oval in the centre of town near the Hills Hub. So works are on schedule. We're hoping, I think, December for the works to be completed. Obviously, you've got the grass growing period. There's been extensive earthworks there with the need for quite considerable retaining walls, but the project looks fantastic, and I know the community's excited about that. In relation to the Hills Hub, it's on track. Construction is due to be complete by May 2019. The contractor has prepared the services for the slab to be poured, which includes board piers and rerouting of the main water supply, which has included works from local water authorities. The base blockwork wall is complete, and the earthworks for the installation of the water tank and turntable have commenced. Structural steel and timber framing will follow shortly after the slab is poured. In relation to Hills Hub, this matter was raised at the Access and Inclusion Committee with concerns about the construction restricting access, and it's really great that that's been rectified now. Obviously, early on there was severe, construction works around the roundabout there. That's been able to be brought back to allow access around the footpath, so that's really good. I just wanted to talk about Kenilworth. We've talked about Kenilworth a lot. The report details exactly what council's continuing to do. In relation to stage 1, Kenilworth Avenue works continue to be on hold due to circumstances beyond our control. Council officers have been unable to facilitate a favourable outcome between the developer and the delivery contractor. The issue has escalated to council's legal advisors to attempt to resolve as quickly as possible. So councillors were updated last week, and it's definitely something we as a council are really trying to resolve. And the reports of details the number of footpaths improvements occurring. It was really great on the weekend. I met with the Cardinia Bicycle Users Group. They wanted to meet me with at some of these new footpaths, and they were expressed their real appreciation of what council's doing in relation to the path network improvements and connections. So it was really good. So I'll allow other councillors to speak, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brito, and seconded to speak. Thank you, Councillor Graham Moore.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Rowan. I just want to speak about a couple of things. The one exciting one, I'm very excitable tonight, Mr Mayor. I know it's unlike me to be like this, but Deep Creek Reserve, the Deep Creek Reserve, which is in Port Ward. Got to understand, it's right on the edge of Pakenham, but it's in the Port Ward area, and we don't get a lot in Port Ward area, so therefore it's a matter of taking it when we can get hold of it. So the all-ability playground is something to behold. It is really something to behold to go and see this playground. I want to ask a question of Mike Ellis, the manager for services. Just a question about the playground. It's nearly in completion. It's not far away. Councillor Brown and I witnessed it the other day, which was fantastic, and it's not far from being completed. And it's a beautiful park. But I'm just concerned about it's not going to be open until middle of next year, middle of 2019, I believe. I'm a bit concerned about the park being left unattended without being used, and we just lock it off, and we've got the car parks made and everything. I just worry about maybe the unsociable behaviour that might end up in that park. It's got a really big dragonfly, this big dragonfly made of steel. It's a rusty steel dragonfly, and it's an amazing thing to see. So it's going to be an attraction for our young people, and so it should be. But it might be our teenagers may get in there too also and use this park. It's tucked down the end of Cameron Way in Pakenham. So it's sort of tucked away in a corner. And I'm just concerned about Mr Ellis of the time of it being finished and being able to use it. Is there any answer or why that is the case and what we're going to do to put in place to secure it? Thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor, if I may ask. Mike Ellis.
It is not a problem at all. Thank you, Mr Ellis.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, to Councillor Moore. In respect to the overall Deep Creek Reserve development, there's a number of elements that are running concurrently, and whilst the All Abilities play space will be substantially, or what we call practically complete at the end of this month, there are lead times associated with other elements. For example, with the All Ability play space, you need to be able to give good All Ability access, so the car park and paths need to be in. That car park can't be constructed or the construction finalised until a substantial amount of the building works are complete. We see that whilst the playground will be practically complete at the end of this month, the car park and the access ways will take till the end of the year. So we envisage that there could be an opportunity to gain access to that All Ability play space earlier in 2019. Which could be a number of months before the Eco Centre's complete. One of the issues that we would need to determine is about supporting amenities for the user of that park as well, but that's something Council can work through. As a construction site, there is fences and gates that it is cordoned off at night, and we do have security arrangements in place, but I agree that when you get a facility of that standard and it's a major attraction, then people will just gravitate to it and want to use the facility. So, I'm hopeful that we can provide access to the community earlier in the 2019 calendar year.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, for allowing me to ask the question, and thank you, Mr Ellis, for your answer. There is something that goes with that. It is an All Abilities park, which means, of course, we can't put just relocatable like taller blocks in there because of the access, which is the same thing as well. It's just been All Abilities, so I can understand where the problem would be with that. So I can understand the frustrations of the opening of this range, but you can see it a mile away, so that dragonfly is really an attraction. You've got to see it to believe it. But the only thank you for the answer, Mr Ellis. The only other one that's started at the moment, which won't be finished until December, is the 13-mile Bunyip River Road Black Spot intersection, the offset. We've started construction on the road changes, but it's got still a fair bit to go. So that'll be really great for the community to have that dangerous intersection taken off our list. But this report is really great for councillors to have. It's like a progress report to our community to show where these projects are heading and look how progressive we are as a council here. But thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. I have other speakers. I have the good-looking one. Okay. Do I have any other speakers? Councillor Jeff Springfield. Thank you, Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to my esteemed colleagues for outlining how great this report is. It is good to receive it each quarter and get an update on the major projects that we are working on. I was going to speak briefly to another one that Councillor Owen didn't mention in the Rangers ward, and that's the Eastern Dandenong Rangers Trail. All right, so we have sort of finished this a while back, but we've been waiting quite some time to launch it. So we've got a placeholder in the diary. So hopefully next week, the esteemed minister will come out and grace us with his presence, and we'll be able to officially cut the ribbon. And yeah, even though we've been using it for quite some time, and it is a fantastic trail. So anyway, I just want to make a quick mention of that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Do I have any other speakers who would like to speak to the report? If not, before going back to the mover to sum up, I must say, Councillor Moore, you brought up a thing about the fact that so many areas are now in Port Ward or Rangers Ward. I must say, when I first started on council, Central Ward with Councillor Owen actually covered Beaconsfield, Officer and Pakenham and covered all of the urban growth boundary. And it was quite amazing. And now Port Ward on the other side of Pakenham Road is in Port Ward. You had from at one stage Webster Way, all south went to Port Ward as well. Then Rangers Ward took in Beaconsfield and Officer. So because of the population increases, Central Ward is getting smaller and smaller. But it's good to hear that all the other councillors enjoy the growth in those areas and can share some really positive things happening, particularly around the all accessibility spaces. Anyway, I'll go back to the mover to sum up unless there's any other speakers. No, back to the mover to sum up, which is Councillor Brett Owen. Thank you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. No further. Thank you.
In that case, we'll go to a vote. All those in favour? Declared carried. Now we move to notices of motion, in particular the notice of motion 1041 lodged by myself. It's actually the first motion that I've moved as the Mayor since I've been the Mayor. And I must say this one here is a very exciting one. I think it'll be more exciting than the actually construction work that's going on in this area, which we'll get to in a minute. And the motion is that council staff prepare a report that considers the implementation of the Arts Grants Program in the 1920 financial year and the allocation of the budgeted figure of $25,000 to be launched to coincide with the opening of the new arts facilities at the Cardinia Cultural Centre and the Hills Hub and the new arts and cultural strategy. The program to potentially consist of art residencies, one per year in each ward, to link with the professional artists with the community sector. 2, that the community arts program for the community artists and art organisations to support new and emerging artists in the fields of dance, musical theatre, digital arts, traditional arts such as painting and sculpture. Do I have a seconder to this motion, please? Councillor Jeff Springfield. Go back to the mover to speak, which is me. Anyway, I must say I put this motion up in a similar motion to this in 2015 but it didn't get enough support after the report came back. I must say I find it really interesting in our Shire that we spend tens of millions of dollars on sport and sporting infrastructure. And in the arts area, we have got some amazingly gifted people in this area. And at the moment, we're building we've got the stage of the Cultural Centre, which is getting its very first revamp. We've got the Hills Hub coming along. And it's interesting that in those areas, the people in the arts are extremely passionate. They love what they do. They often do it for no money. In fact, they put aside their own finances to pursue their passions in this area. I just believe that if this report comes back and it's of a positive nature, that council will embrace it and will find $25,000 of new money to go towards this grants program, which would be announced at the opening of the Cardinia Cultural Centre and the New Hills Hub. And it would, over the next year after that, would be the first time that the grants would actually be awarded to residents in the community. So what they're going to do now is go away and they're going to have a look at what council, their thoughts are in this area and what they would recommend to us, and they're going to bring back a report, and it will be for $25,000 per annum to be put towards this project. And I think you'll see so many people benefit from this who don't get any benefit at the moment, or any support or any recognition from council other than a whole lot of verbal. But I can tell you, the arts area will be that excited with this that I think it'll actually supersede the actual building and the construction of the actual infrastructure that we're building for them to do their activities in. So I'm really excited. I have no artistic talent at all, so I won't be definitely benefit, but I do know people who do have artistic talent. And even for those who just love doing it, I just think it would be absolutely wonderful that some people will come back and share with us their stories of getting the money and what they did with it. And the arts committee will be extremely excited. And what I've been told by James, who manages our arts area, that once you put some money into things like this, a whole lot more flows on. There's so many other areas that can give money towards it if you create really good programs like this. And I think it's the first one in the interface councils to branch out into these areas. So I'll go to the mover to speak to this as well, and over to the seconder. I'm the mover, yes. The seconder to speak. Thank you, Councillor Jeff Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Moore, for quick little corrections there. Where would we be without you? Huh?
That's right.
Mayor, hats off to you for bringing this initiative to our table. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great new program. As you said, we don't put a lot of funding towards arts initiatives. We have some. We are active in this space, but I think the more the better. And there is going to be some very grassroots level community out there that's going to benefit from this and help share that love of arts in the community. Which is what it's all about. It's all about participation and having the artist residencies. One in each ward I think is a great idea as well. So I fully support this project, and I look forward to next year and seeing us launch it if it gets the support around the room. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. I have another speaker there, Councillor Michael Schilling, and then Councillor Graham Moore. Thank you, Councillor Schilling.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'll be supporting you tonight in getting this report brought to Council for a number of reasons, and I'm lucky enough to sit on the Arts Advisory Group. It's a fantastic committee to sit on. Arts has a massive scope in our community, and it has a much wider scope than just somebody expressing their art form in whatever way that might be. As a Shire, if we want to look at innovation and we want to look at things like employment and economy and factors that support a local economy, the arts is a massive aspect to that. If you look at what comes along with the arts, you look at things like hospitality, you look at things like offering experiences to people outside the Shire to come in and enjoy. I mean, that's what it's all about. And anything that we can do to support that and make ourselves known as being inclusive to the arts community, I think all the better. At a more sort of micro level, if you look at what the arts brings, it brings about social cohesion. We've got a diverse community here in Cardinia, and from time to time you see barriers in communities, but I guess the arts is a way that we can bring people together. I mean, art form is something that we can all appreciate, and that we can all sort of form relationships with. So look, I'll be supporting this report coming back to council for all of those reasons. I completely concur with you in a lot of ways. I think sport and recreation is set. It's done. We build a new housing estate. It automatically gets a recreation reserve in a lot of ways, and that's a very, very important aspect to a successful community. But sometimes with the arts, we have to fight that little bit harder. So initiatives like this, I'm always happy to support. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Shilling. Over to Councillor Moore. Thank you, Councillor Graham Moore.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mayor, for bringing this up. This is, I think, a very important notice of motion. I just want to make it very clear, although I'm a big believer in the arts, art, I believe. But it's just that I want to make sure that everyone understands, and particularly the community understands, that this is a report to come back. It is not a motion to okay the 25,000. It's a report to come back to us as councillors to look at all the aspects and be well informed of how we're going to engineer and bring this to fruition, that is funded and how we can fund it and how we can make this happen. So it's a report to come back to us as council so we can make a decision, an informed decision on this particular item. Is that correct, Mr Mayor?
Crystal clear, Councillor Moore. Do we have any other speakers either for or against the motion? If not, I will sum up. I must say we needed some money around this for people to take it seriously, and we also needed, because the people who were going to design it needed to know whether they had $500 or whether they've got $50,000, so they can actually put something together that's meaningful, that will impact people's lives. I think in a budget of $100 million, $25,000 that will absolutely affect people's lives on a yearly basis and inspire them. And often in these areas, they have very little money and they do it in their own time at the adverse of working. I must say, one of the reasons I brought up all the different areas, I must say, as Mayor, I've had the privilege to go and meet so many different groups who you probably don't get often the opportunity to. I must say, in the area of dance, it is just so big in our Shire. I mean, you go and have a look. You know, we have ballroom, we have ballet, we have the Irish dancing crew, who probably got 20 Victorian and Australian champions in amongst them, and you wouldn't even know they're there. And those parents and their families from all ages, and I didn't put any ages on this because it goes from the young people all the way through to people who have retired and have decided they'd like to do something with their time in the arts, and they should be supported as well. I must say, so you look at dance, you look at musical theatre and drama. Digital arts is really interesting. That got expressed to me that a lot of young people are into digital art and that sort of thing, designing things on a computer, like gaming and all that. It's very, very big, very popular amongst young people. So we want to encourage those people to get involved and keep involved in the arts as well. We've also got our traditional stream of art, which is painting and drawings, also sculpture and pottery and all those sort of things. I think they all need to be recognised for the uniqueness that they carry, and they should be supported. So anyway, I look forward to this report coming back, and I hope that Council, who have spoke very positively about it at this stage, will support it when it comes back. So I will put this to the vote. All those in favour? Unanimously carried, and I thank everybody for that. This concludes discussion of the items withdrawn. So can I have a motion, please, to adopt the recommendations for the balance of the items listed? Councillor Jodie Owen, seconded Councillor Graham Moore. All those in favour? Declared unanimously carried. Moving on to reports or minutes of committees. I note that several reports from various committees have been tabled in addition to the minutes of the recent council briefing sessions, and they are available if any councillors wish to view them. Moving on to councillor reports. Do councillors have any reports to report? Thank you, Councillor Shilling.
Thank you, Mayor. I've just got one item to quickly speak too. And there's been a lot of talk about youth tonight, and I'd just like to quickly update councillors on the Youth Council year concludes. So it's almost been 12 months since our first Youth Council was launched in Cardinia, and I have to say it's, I'm incredibly proud of this young group of people, and it's been a fantastic year watching them all grow. So it's good to raise the positive image of youth, and not all teenagers are down at Deep Creek trying to destroy the dragonfly, which is good. I'd just like to say, though, that's thrown me off now. Youth Council, so it started in 2018 in January, and they've got their last meeting now in November. And in this last 12 months, we've now got young people sitting on committees across the Shire. We've got young people sitting on local boards within the community that run community groups. We've had young people speaking positively about the image of young people in the community at different community events, residents groups. Who could forget the famous debate that Councillor Ross and I attended, the Youth Council versus councillors and council officers debate, where we all lost terribly to these amazing young people. But the part of this, what I wanted to get to, was that they ran at the start of the year, they said that they wanted to run an event, and that event happened last week. They made a partnership with Headspace, and in that partnership, they ran a youth mental health wellbeing event down at the Cardinia Cultural Centre, where they ran a series of events for young people, 2 demonstrations. We had a yoga instructor and a meditation teacher, and a whole heap of services there to focus on the mental health and well-being of young people within our Shire. So there was a whole heap of information around, and look, I take my hats off to these young people, and I'd like to thank councillors too that have supported them throughout this year. I think we really haven't had to do very much. At the start of the year, we gave them a direction, we gave them a framework, and they've just ran with it. And we should all be incredibly proud of these people and what they've achieved. So applications are now open for the 2019 Youth Council, so we can do it all again. So if any people are out there in the community between the ages of 16 and 21, I highly recommend that you apply. It's a fantastic program. It will be run this next year internally with the youth team, with the support of councillors still being the young people's mentors. So it's shaping up to be a fantastic 2018. Finally, one community event I'd like to draw people's attention to is in Lakeside. In Lakeside, there was a dragon that lived at the Dragon Park. And if you speak to members of the community, the 2 issues that come up all the time for a Central Ward councillor is, when are we getting a Kmart, and what happened to the dragon at the Dragon Park? Well, I can officially report, thanks to Mr. O'Hara, who's in the gallery tonight, that the dragon is making a return to the Dragon Park. And if you're around on the 28th of October at 10 o'clock in the morning, you can come down, and you can join us all for the official welcoming of the dragon. So if anyone is free, please come down, but it will conclude a bit of a story. I look forward to taking part in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shilling. Do I have any other reports? Any councillors? Councillor Brett Owen. Thank you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. On Friday night, we had the annual fundraiser gala event for the Casey Cardinia Foundation, and it was really pleasing. It was a great night. Over 300 people attended. We believe, as one of the directors, we believe that almost 100,000 was raised on the night. So I would like to thank everyone involved, the directors, the volunteers. There were many volunteers on the night, many from council. Particularly Kathy Douglas did a fantastic job, but a great outcome. $100,000 raise is a fantastic outcome, probably the best yet in the history. I welcome and acknowledge the presence of our new CEO, Carol Jeffs. It's great that you're on board Cardinia, but in her first week, I had the opportunity. Every councillor is going to meet with the new CEO initially, and have 2 hours and highlight priorities, etc., of each councillor. And I took the opportunity on Friday to take Carol, around Rangers Ward. We know Rangers Ward is massive, and I know that the other two councillors for Rangers Ward will show Carol other areas. But I at this occasion went down south, and we did a quick tour of the matters and the issues that I'm sort of concerned about, and I'll let the new CEO know about that. And that was the Officer Rec Reserve, the unmade roads right on the border of the growth corridor. There's many challenges with that. So that was Brown Road, LL Road, the Beaconsfield Nature Conservation Reserve, which is the Beaconsfield Reservoir, the Upper Beaconsfield Community Centre, Elephant Rock. That's a project that the community up there would like to see improvements to. The Upper Beaconsfield Rec Reserve, Home Park Rec Reserve, the issues around the Beaconsfield shops with traffic management concerns, the Beaconsfield Railway Station, car parking issues, Glissman Road. We went up Glissman Road and we talked about that. We drove down Kenilworth and it was really, really interesting, wasn't it? So we definitely saw the challenges firsthand, and also we talked about the importance of off-leash parks and infrastructure. So it was a great opportunity, and I know every councillor is going to get that opportunity. So it was great to show Carol around. So thank you for that. That was a really good initiative. The Pick My Project was a state government grant application process, and the results were announced only a week or so ago, and I'm really pleased that out of the 31 projects in the southern metro region, 6 of them came from Cardinia. It was extremely close. The ones that just got pipped, it was just a handful of votes in the end. There was projects in Cardinia which were creating free Seek community kitchen, Growing the Future, Pakenham Community School Farm and Food Project, the Bee Experience educational project, creating awareness about unique salad bowl, and the Seek Community Centre, and also the Officer Joint Community Function room attached to the Officer Recreation Reserve. We've talked about that project a number of times, and it was really great that this community group got 200,000. We know there's a gap, and council is working with the organisers to try and get additional funds to make that project happen. But to get 200,000 as part of Pick My Project, I congratulate Officer, but also all the others that received money. But as I said, it was very close, and I acknowledge the great work of the others that weren't successful. I wanted to acknowledge that council got re-accredited for the Scope Communication Access Accreditation. Back in 2013, we were the first Metropolitan Council to successfully gain that accreditation. So I'm pleased that as of Monday the 8th of October, Cardinia Shire Council received formal notification that our communication access re-accreditation had been successfully achieved. I'd like to thank Marcia Cataray and also our customer service team, particularly Donna Wade. And part of that accreditation was ensuring that we had completed communication diversity training, entered into a partnership with the Metro Access Officer and Outlook, engaging participants from Outlook to act as mystery shoppers, testing and trialling the skills and confidence of our customer service staff when liaising with community members with complex communication needs in advance of the formal accreditation assessments. Also to develop a buddy system whereby new staff were mentored by more experienced staff, bringing them up to speed on the range of diversity of communication technology and tools available with customer service and how to best use them. Why we do this? Because 1 in 500 individuals in Victoria, 1 in 500 in Cardinia, have complex communication needs. This means that either their speech is difficult to understand or they cannot speak. So I'm really pleased that we have been re-accredited. Finally, I did do a walkthrough of Beaconsfield with a number of interested residents, particularly the Beaconsfield Progress Association. They raised concerns about the tidiness of the town. So it was really great to be joined with members of our outdoor team to identify the concerns and see how council can do better in that space to beautify Officer. And finally, sorry, I just wanted to note that the 2018 Victorian Senior Awards was announced on Tuesday the 9th of October. And it's really great that two of the awards were given to two former members of the Emerald community, including the Emerald Village Committee. So Miss Cheryl Webster, a breast cancer survivor who started the organisation Knitted Knockers Australia, providing knitted breast prosthesis free to women after surgery. She has worked with many organisations through this work. And also Mr Hamish Russell, who's a former chair of the Emerald Village Committee. He was awarded the Premier's Award for the Senior of the Year for his work with Inspiro, Health and many committees in Ranges, Yarra Ranges and Cardinia Shire. So I just thought it was really important that two locals were recognised at that state level. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Do we have any other reports from councillors? Councillor Graham Moore.
Quick.
Thank you, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, and tomorrow I'm taking Carol Jeffs around the Port Board area tomorrow, so it's going to be one of those entertaining days for you, Carol, I hope. Just two things. Yesterday, we Councillor Brown and I, we were at the witnessing and we were involved in the launch of the Hillsville to Phillip Island Nature Link, which is just a fantastic thing. That corridor down the Cardinia Creek is going to be a really great thing in the future. So at Harewood, at that wonderful homestead called Harewood, which is down in Tooradin. So that was a really great launch that was yesterday. So that's about all I've got to say, Mr Mayor, because we could be here all night. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Were there any other reports that any councillors would like to give? If not, I'll just add just one of the very few things that I've been to lately. I must say the Together We Can annual conference was amazing down there at the Cardinia Cultural Centre, where people set up for their new year some new programs to go out and initiate against family violence. But I must say I had to leave halfway through the morning, and I went on the Metro Waste and Resource Recovery Group tour, which actually was about sustainable food and using what you have in food in a really sustainable way. And I was really proud that they chose to come to Cardinia Shire. Summer Snow Orchard. Actually, we went up to visit, and I actually picked apples there for about 12 weeks, going back about 20 years ago myself. And it was really interesting. 20 years ago, they had 2 years where they had basically that much hail that it damaged all of their crop, and they weren't able to keep it. So what they did was they decided they'd buy a juicing machine, and they'd do the best they could to juice some of the fruit. It's now turned into a resource that they juice 120 to 150 boxes of fruit a day. They take the second grade fruit out there, which isn't the most popular either, undersized, oversized fruit, and they turn it into juice. They also do things like vinegar as well. They also make out of the pulp food stock for animals. They're also into trying to use some of the feed stock that comes out of it for like a hemp sort of a thing that they're working on at the moment. But it's just amazing how they utilise everything. I was really proud too that we went down to, I believe, Councillor Owen's favourite restaurant, Oh My, who said he's one of their biggest ambassadors, and they actually grow all their own food, or most of their food they grow, or they try and source it locally. The chap who's the head chef there actually won on MasterChef, so he was quite amazing. He shared part of his story, and he's got his two brothers who opened the place as well, and it's a local place. It received 2 hats in the ages, and it was really impressive. I know everyone there were really impressed, even to the fact that for anyone who goes there, their desserts are made up out of bits and pieces of recycled food that they put away and they bring out, and they enjoy watching people eat it, not knowing what they're eating, and then they tell them afterwards, and they've enjoyed it very much so. But they absolutely amazing. We went down there. Also, too, there was we've employed here at council a person who is a senior lecturer at Melbourne University in food sustainability, and he's structured up a plan within Cardinia Shire that makes us extremely proud as the Shire, and well respected and looked up upon in this area, where we promote local food. We encourage people to eat better because unfortunately our obesity in our Shire is one of the highest in the state of Victoria, and healthy eating wasn't one of our main priorities. But we're doing something about that by trying to get the message out to people to eat better and out to schools. Also, too, I attended the Baba Buddha Gunawara Sikh Community Festival, and it went for 2 days, and it was quite amazing. They had, I think, probably 3,000 to 4,000 people come to their festival here in Pakenham. They used they had a volleyball competition where people come from all over Australia. I think they had 25 teams involved from all over Australia. They had badminton. And then on the Sunday, they had at IYU Stadium down on Henry Road. I think they had about 3,000 people turn up, and they beamed it live back to India, the Sikh community. They had free food for everybody. They had free rides for everybody down there too. You would not meet more welcoming people who want to be part of the community. They also had a competition that I watched, and it went for about 3 hours. It's a competition of a sport called kabaddi. And anyone who knows about kabaddi would know that there's a place in India when they were beaming it back live, was seen by 200,000 people were watching. It's bigger than AFL football in India. And it's a game of tag and wrestling, where someone goes to another team and you try and tag someone, and then they've got to fight their way out back to the other side. Quite amazing. And these people all loved it. It was amazing. And then they, in fact, had all the women join in too in their sport, and they actually had, musical chairs, which was really interesting because it was beamed back live to India. Everyone who got knocked out, they actually interviewed them, 2 different guys, and it was a real good time. I must say the winners of the musical chairs on the middle of the oval got $300 for first prize, $200 for second prize, and $100 for third prize. So no wonder they got a bit serious towards the end. But I must say, it was a really good time. They used our facilities. I know they absolutely went to the nth degree. I saw them the next morning there picking up every single piece of rubbish. They wanted to make sure they did it really, really well. And I must say, I know the Australia Day celebrations that we have, they supply food, and they are so helpful in making it the special day that it is. So congratulations to them. I know they're talking about getting it bigger for next year. I won't report on all the things I do. That's just a couple of special things. Anyway, is there any more council reports? If not, we will move on to presentations of petitions. And I believe, Mr. Evans, we had at our special council meeting a petition that was presented. So you'd like to speak of that. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. There was a petition tabled by Gloria O'Connor in regard to the property at 6 to 10 Main Street. So this will be tabled at tonight's meeting for formal consideration at the council meeting next month, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Do we have any other petitions? I don't think so. We will move on to community question time. We've received multiple questions from the public for this evening. Our first question comes from Mr. Michael Smith. Is Mr. Smith in the gallery? Thank you, Mr. Smith. General Manager for Assets and Services, Mr. Mike Ellis, will answer your question. He will read your question out and he will answer your question. Also, too, the answers to your question can be given back in writing to you too, so you can have them in writing as well. Over to you, Mr. Evans.
Mr. Ellis. Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Smith, thank you for your letter to council. Your question reads, The question reads, is the council planning on a permanent solution for the ongoing issues in regards to the inadequate road surface on the corners of Lowen Road and Morris Street, Lowen Road and Jean Street and Lowen Road and Helson Roads? The answer in response to that, Mr Smith, is that council operations staff are well aware of the problems associated with Lowen Street and the roads that actually come up and intersect with Lowen, and the steep grades. In speaking to that department, they advise that there's a major resheeting program that was done some 12 months or so ago, and that it's been particularly difficult to retain the gravel pavement because of the steep grade at the intersections, with vehicles stopping and trying to accelerate to go around the intersections. What they're intending to do is to look at a cement stabilised crush rock treatment, which has been used successfully in a number of other locations where there's been steep gradients, and monitor how that performs. I guess if that doesn't work, then there'll need to be consideration of a formal construction and sealing, and at that time we would need to meet with residents that are on those abutting roads to talk about an opportunity to do a full construction via a special charge scheme. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Ellis. The answers to the questions will be given in writing, and also too, if you wanted to have a chat, probably to Mr Ellis afterwards, they're available to have a chat to. No problem. Thank you. We'll move on to the next series of questions which have been sent in from Gloria O'Connor. I see Gloria there. Hi, Gloria. I refer the questions to the General Manager of Governance, Mr Evans. Thank you, Mr Evans.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mrs O'Connor's lodged 3 questions, so I'll read the questions first and then the prior individual answers. Question 1. When answering a question on 17 September regarding council land at 6 to 10 Main Street, Pakenham, the CEO stated that the council had fulfilled its statutory obligation in the advertising of the proposed project. There is an expectation in the community that council meet a higher standard than a minimum when notifying the community of any development on what is in fact community-owned land. At the very least, all interested parties adjoining the proposed development should be notified. The Berwick Pakenham Historical Society's permanent home is the old council office at 85 Princess Highway, which adjoins 6 to 10 Main Street, Pakenham. I now ask the Mayor, will he give an undertaking to the community on behalf of the council that when proposing to make changes to the management of council-owned land, all users of council-owned land facilities will be notified? In response to your question, Mrs Gloria, we're very happy to make that undertaking. The second question from Mrs O'Connor reads, concerning the required pre-planning application signage on the site at 6 to 10 Main Street, would you please supply the following information? What is the name of the applicant person who placed the signs on site, and what date and time? After several days when signs were on the ground and no longer visible, what action, if any, was taken to replace them? What date were the signs removed and by whom? When 2 statutory declarations were supplied by residents advising lack of 14-day visibility and continuity of the signage, they were advised by a council officer that it did not matter whether the signs were visible, lying on the ground or in the green vegetation at the end of the site. Can you please advise what is required by development pre-planning permit rules? Mrs O'Connor, the applicant was Sienna Building Proprietary Limited. As previously advised, when council staff noticed that the advertising signage had been blown over due to strong winds, the applicant was advised to re-erect them, and this was undertaken. Council has been advised that the signs were erected for the period between 3 July and 23 July. Section 52 of the Planning and Environment Act sets out the requirements of giving notice of an application if it is deemed that notice is required the responsible authority must give notice of an application to the owners and occupiers of allotments adjoining the land. Council sent letters to the owners and occupiers of adjoining properties. Therefore, Council has satisfied the requirements of the Act. The responsible authority, being the Council in this case, may also provide notification to any other persons if the responsible authority considers that the grant of the permit may cause material detriment to them. In this case, Council extended the mail out beyond the adjoining landowners, and 18 properties were advertised in total. Council may also require the applicant to place signage on the site. It is acknowledged that Council was advised that the signs had fallen over, and the applicant was advised that the signage was replaced in position. Council has received a statutory declaration from the applicant stating that the signage was on the land for a total of 14 days. Council is satisfied that the advertising was carried out in accordance with the Act, in that the adjoining property owners occupiers were notified. 4 objections were received and considered as part of the planning process. The objectors had the opportunity to appeal the decision to VCAT and chose not to. Mrs O'Connor's third and final question reads, there is a very strong community opinion that the Pakenham 6 to 10 Main Street site is certainly not suitable for the proposed excessive housing development, and also is not an appropriate location for the described transitional housing. Would you please advise who in Council was initially responsible for the choice of this site for the proposed development? To answer your question, Mrs O'Connor, Council staff undertook an audit of all vacant Council land in and around Pakenham. This vacant site on Main Street was considered suitable for this development, and the Council has endorsed that development and that use. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
And those answers will be given in writing for you. 2 things, Gloria. The last set of questions was sent in from Rosa Santo, and I see Rosa in the gallery. And these will be answered by Mr Ellis. Also to Rosa, I know Jenny Cicluna, the Manager for Community Wellbeing, would like to have a chat to you afterwards if she could, just about a couple of things she might be able to help out with. Anyway, the question will be answered by Mr Ellis. Thank you, Mr Ellis.
Thanks, Rosa, for your question. There's 3 questions you've asked, and what I'll read out the question and then the answer to the question so that it's easier to follow. The first question is, who is currently responsible for care and maintenance of the Pakenham outdoor swimming pool, which is looking very neglected and untidy in its surrounds? Council are responsible for the maintenance of the buildings and the surrounds, and we have contractors that do the works for us. In speaking to the operations staff, they were saying that there has been problems recently with just a plague of ducks that have decided to call the Pakenham pool their home and been soiling the water and the surrounds. So that's been an issue that we've been trying to deal with, and we have had similar problems at Garfield where we've used netting to overcome that issue, which we're looking at trialling at Pakenham also. In terms of the overall landscaping and the maintenance regime, that does vary depending on the time of the year due to the growth factor, but also when the pool is opened and you've got people utilising the facility, the maintenance levels of the surrounds are higher than when it's closed over the winter months. The second question is, can you please give information about the car parking progress at the Cardinia Cultural Centre? It's been providing difficult for many drivers presently. So the construction of the car park is well underway. There's 70 sealed car parks to be provided in addition to the car parking that's currently there. At this stage, the construction of the car park will be completed by early November, so we're only talking a matter of weeks away, which will be a great relief in terms of that inconvenience, but also having the additional access for the community to the new centre. And the third question is, would you please give information about the works being carried out on the site adjoining the Pakenham Bowling Club building in Henry Street, in particular the very deep hole being excavated in the area? So Rosa, the works that are occurring there is basically to convert the area where the old Shire depot is, and there was the dental clinic and a shed, to clear that area out and to formalise that as additional car parking for use by the bowling club, also people accessing Services Central where Scope is, and also the larger reserve. The reason there's a big hole there at the moment, there were 3 underground fuel tanks that had to be removed. Then the building will be demolished, the area reinstated, and a sealed car park constructed to finish off the area, as well as landscaping. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
They'll be given to you in writing, the answers to the questions, and also Ms. Cicluna would like to just have a word to you about a couple of things as well. That'd be fabulous. Finally, we've received a question from Carol from Redfern Way in Pakenham. Carol is not able to be with us this evening, so we will respond to her in writing. That being said, she said she'd be watching on the webcam, so hi there, Carol. Underwhelming, hello. Anyway, the question she asked was, she wanted to know who was doing the maintenance on the 20-storey drive site in the future. It's been sold to the Women's Property Initiative, and they will be responsible for the maintenance of the property at the site. And that answer will be able to be given to Carol in writing as well. So even though she's not here, we will make that available to her. The very end. Before closing the meeting, I would like to say a few words, as it's my last council meeting as Mayor of this great Shire. I have thoroughly enjoyed my time as Mayor over the last 12 months. It's been an honour, a great honour and a privilege to serve as the Mayor, and I thank you all for the confidence in electing me into the position. I trust that I've performed up to and hopefully exceeding the expectations that people might have had. Your support and encouragement in the job has made it so much easier, and I'm so thankful. To the Chief Executive Officer, to Gary, and now for Cara for a week, and for a few more weeks, and all the staff, I want to thank you. I must say I've enjoyed the great relationship with each and every one of the staff members that I've come in contact with, and they've always been absolutely gone out of their way to help me out and assist me. As an organisation, we've achieved tremendous outcomes for the community, and I am positive the new Mayor will see the results continue on into 2019. On the 12th of November, a new Mayor will commence their 12-month journey, and I hope they receive the same support that I've been able to in my term in the chair role. I must say, it is an amazing honour to have this opportunity after 10 years. I must say, it's been all and even more than what I thought it would be. The opportunities to go out and speak on behalf of the community and get people to know who we are and what we're about has been amazing. And I must say we are very, very highly respected in the local government sector. And it's been absolutely wonderful, and I hope to work with whoever becomes the new Mayor to assist them on continuing the relationships that we've been able to foster and build. And I thank you all very much. And that concludes tonight's proceedings, and I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.